Hello and welcome to my channel, I Went to Lose Gaming. Today we're going to be taking a look at Venti's massive buffs and see just how crazy they are for Genshin Impact version Luna 3. Now guys, I'm so sorry, but I'm even more cooked than the turkeys today on Thanksgiving, and holidays are here, so you know that means spending time with the family instead of spending time in my basement making videos on a gacha game waifu collector. So yeah, sorry this video is going to be like this, but either way I still got a ton of great things to show you guys about Venti, and hopefully we'll also make it through all of his constellations as well as showcasing what he's capable of thanks to his Hexerei buffs and whether or not he's actually a strong DPS character or not at Constellation 0 and with various weapons. This video was filmed on the early access server and is not indicative of the final product. There may be some changes on release, so be sure to check the comments down below to see if there are any. In case you don't know much about Venti, he is the Anemo Archon. You can see his pre-farming materials here. For this video, his talents are not crowned, and of course he uses these and this and slimes for his materials. And we're going to start off at Constellation 0, but we will likely activate them as we go on. Parts of the video he's using 2-piece. Parts of the video he's using 4-piece Veritas Inventor. And he actually does have some pretty decent 4-piece set options with, for example, the Desert Pavilion Chronicle being one of them. Starting off, actually, we're going to slap him on the Chainbreaker or the Song of Stillness. Unfortunately, we are missing one of his best free-to-play friendly options, which is the Rust. The Rust is not here on the server, so we're stuck with these, which are significantly worse, by the way. So what you're seeing here with these free-to-play friendly options is noticeably worse. On top of that, his talents aren't maxed, and these artifacts are pretty mid, all things considered. Speaking of his artifacts, starting off, this piece is really nice. It's missing energy recharge, but starting off, you can see his artifacts. This one's okay, I guess. These two are usable. Feather's great, but everything kind of mid overall, but very usable, all things considered. So, yeah. If you don't know what happened to Venti, basically, he is now a Hexerei character. Oh, apparently it's pronounced Hexerei, not Hexerei, so I apologize for the 100 times I've said that incorrectly. So Hexerei character. And you can see here his buffs that he gets when he is a Hexerei character. Now, let's actually just go ahead and I want to show you guys a couple things. Let's quickly showcase Venti without the Hexerei buffs. And I brought Kokomi so that way we can guarantee the elemental infusion on his elemental burst. We're also going to do a quick charge attack to buff the Desert Pavilion and then do one of his normal attack strings like this. And we can see here, I mean, look at that. The damage here, I mean, what are we at? Like, not even half of the Cryo Regisfine's health without, of course, the Hexerei buffs. So now by simply adding a Hexerei character like Fischl to the team, now we have the Hexerei Secret Right buff activated for Venti. And we can go ahead and take a look at his performance now. And we're going to pop down. And I forgot to do the charge attack beforehand, but oh well, I guess. And we can see here just such a massive difference. I mean, the Regisfine is already dead, and we didn't even get to use his second elemental skill, and I messed up the rotation at the same time. So massive buff, turning Venti into an actually viable main DPS character. Please take this next comparison with a massive grain of salt. I'm not saying that Venti is better than the other two, but I'm just showcasing how he performs at similar levels of investment. In this case, Venti with the Chainbreaker, I believe, as well as Xiao and Wander with their signature weapons. And we can see here, Venti with the free-to-play friendly Chainbreaker is performing about the same as the other two, really elevating his performance here. And what if we actually give Venti his signature weapon, which I actually don't remember the name of it. Of course, this is not a direct comparison of their power because I'm not optimized in terms of Xiao gameplay and stuff like that. So please take this with a grain of salt. I'm not saying Venti is better than them. All I'm saying is that now he is definitely comparable to Xiao and Wander. And basically, he gets this additional talent called Witch's Eve Right Temporal Winds Eulogy. And this is a new additional talent that shows up in his character talent page. As we can see, this talent was indeed added right here. There's even a view details button, which actually just takes us there. So we'll probably just use this UI. This one is saying when Venti uses his elemental burst for 4 seconds after a nearby active character triggers a swirl reaction, that character's damage is increased by 50%. And for good measure, Venti's Storm Eye deals 135% of its original damage. So I guess Venti's burst will just effectively do more damage. Like for example, it could be Wander, it could be Xiao. They will gain a 50% damage bonus, meaning that Venti will be just a decent buffer for characters like Wander and Xiao. It honestly sounds pretty bizarre, but hey, maybe a future Anemo DPS character can also take advantage of this buff. So let's go ahead and actually try out the 50% buff that Venti provides through his burst. And we'll try it out by buffing Wander's damage. So first we need our control. So we're just going to do his charge attacks, which as we can see are doing 17,465 damage. Certainly not the most impressive amount of damage, but it is damage nonetheless. And next, let's go ahead and add Venti's burst. We should give Wander a 50% damage bonus as well. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that it pyro infuses. And you can see now that Wander's charge attacks are doing 21,797 after the buff. The next buff here, we can see the original description right here. We just had normal charge plunging attack, and we have these multipliers right here. But if we click on after enhancement, we still have the normal charge plunge attack, which I don't believe changed, but we do have this Hexerei secret right now. Now, while Venti's burst is active, Venti will gain additional effects, which include Venti's normal attacks will be converted into enemy piercing wind sunder arrows that deal even more Anemo damage to opponents along the path. That's right, Venti is getting Anemo infused basic attacks. Now, the next quick thing I want to showcase about Venti is that he's actually got a lot of techs. Being a bow character, being a 1.0 character, there's a lot of jank, a lot of stank, and that also means a lot of, I would say, unintentional design exploits. So, first of all, he can perform the arc shot, which is when you fire a shot, just going into aimed mode. And this actually has many applications. You see there that I fired that shot instantly. You can trigger his Desert of Pavilion Chronicles even faster than, for example, a character like Wander, or manually holding it down to shoot it like that. If you get really good at the arc shot, you can do that instant shot to charge that up. And look, sometimes when you do the arc shot correctly, you can even glitch their eyes where they're winking one eye, because when they're aiming, they have one eye closed. So just a funny little graphical glitch when you do the arc shot. That's how you know that you did it correctly too sometimes. Next, we have his elemental skill, which normally is slow and clunky, but there are multiple techs to actually speed it up. For example, one is just by mashing the basic attacks, you'll notice that he animation cancels his elemental skill. And that typically is the way that we're going to go about it. You can also hold it a bit and then release, which is also pretty fast, but for the most part, that's definitely not necessary if you just tap it and mash the basics. So Venti's already got a couple additional techs, and finally, he's even got the N2 RR cancel like this. And I have to admit, I am not good at this, but if you hit RR, the moment a shot comes out, you will animation cancel that instantly. And here we can also do that for his N6 as well. So you can do this at different parts of the combo to speed up his damage output. So yeah, Venti is actually going to have a pretty decent skill ceiling. They've got a really quick, I guess, showcase for kind of a tech, but this is basically how many auto attacks do you need to do in order to actually max out Venti's burst duration. Here we can see with just his burst, it is taking exactly 8 seconds and, well, 1 frame, I guess, not exactly, for his burst duration. Now, interestingly, I tested this 5 times total, and 2 out of the 5 times with just a normal attack 1. I only got 1 additional stack on his burst. Of course, it is only 5 tests, so this is not, indicative of anything concrete at all. But you can see here, sometimes the N1 will actually increase his burst duration by the 2 stacks, increasing his burst duration up to 10 seconds instead of just 9 seconds. So yeah, it's up to you whether or not you want to gamble with that with just an N1. Personally, that means that if you want it to be consistently 10 seconds, I do recommend N1 plus N2 in order to pretty much guarantee that it will be a 10-second burst instead of an 8-second burst. And yeah, clips like this, honestly, in my videos, I cut a lot of things like this for a lot of my videos because frankly, oh man, there's just so much that goes into the editing and stuff for me, and I'm so cooked. The holidays always kill me because I'm trying to work and spend time with the family and everything. So yeah, I apologize for the quality of this video, but hey, doing my best. So hopefully you still learned something useful so far. Alright, let's take a look at some quick showcase, and hopefully these showcases will be as quick as wouldn't gliding be faster because, well, I guess we still got a decent amount of time left on this video, so I guess they weren't faster than gliding. But we can see here that everyone is starting off with 4-star weapons, including Venti, and we're just going to go with a cookie cutter DPS Venti team just to start off. And I kind of wanted to demonstrate, hey, check this out, Venti is actually a pretty solid character, even if you don't pull for a signature weapon, or frankly, even without Durin as well, he's usable is how I would describe him. But yeah, he's a pretty decent character, all things considered. I mean, this amount of team DPS against the big pudgy friend, and this is also without crowns on Venti as well. So there's a reasonable amount of room to improve. And as we can see, certainly non-negligible amount of damage against our giant green pudgy friend, although it didn't quite one cycle and we relied on it blowing up its fruits in order to take it out. And similarly, now we have his Refinement 1 signature weapon. I believe it's called the Daybreak Chronicles. We can see here 99,000 damage elemental skill, along with some pretty hefty normal attacks here. We can see here. And we can see very close to a single cycle. Maybe had I stayed on Venti for a bit longer, we might have been able to squeeze it out. But yeah, so definitely more damage than with his Chainbreaker, but certainly a decent performance, all things considered. Now, I also want to demonstrate, hey, look, if you don't want to pull for Durin, if you already have Venti, and, well, you got a decent artifact set to slap him on, hey, he can actually deal with Merciless with Constellation 0 and pretty low investment. Farazan does have Constellation 6. Do keep that in mind, that is definitely very helpful for Venti when it comes to a 4-star only team situation. But we can see here, and we are definitely dealing a lot of damage to the Ikotomisaurus, as we also counter its mechanics thanks to Venti just being, you know, obviously perfectly made for this fight. And I will say that Venti will actually struggle in the future, in my opinion, due to particle issues. And this boss happens to give you full burst, right? But Venti is going to struggle to get his burst up in the first rotation because he relies on battering himself up. So yeah, do keep that in mind. For future Stygian onslaughts, we may see him struggle a bit more just because of the battering issue. Anyway, ironically, I actually had more difficulty against this Abyss 12 without, for example, Durin on his team. But in this case, everyone's using 4-star weapons, of course, Durin Constellation 0, Venti Constellation 0. And now we're going to go for the Abyss 12-1. And if you know what this Abyss is about, this Abyss has 41 enemies in the top half. An absolutely outrageous number of enemies, and as you can see, Venti is doing fantastic against it. Although I will say, actually, in terms of 5-star Constellation 0 characters, one of the better ones against this one is actually Child. I mean, Venti's pretty good too, but funnily enough, you have Child, well, he's gonna have a heyday in this specific Abyss 12. So yeah, but we can see here, obviously, very, very well designed for Venti, who's able to pick up all the, you know, little trash mobs and basically deal with them. And of course, he's got some pretty decent single target DPS where he can take out this robot mining thing, which is literally just thrown in here to be annoying as kind of a single target situation. Now, one minor issue with this team is that Farazan does have a 20-second cooldown. So yeah, there's that to keep in mind. And yeah, very clean clear of this Abyss 12. Now let's go through Venti's Constellation showcases. So in this specific showcase, in order to help normalize the performance of it. I do have them with a 20% crit rate food, and unfortunately this creator experience server also only has 20% crit damage food, so yeah. But yeah, this way we can bring their crit rates up to nearly 100%. We can see here, this is the starting point with the chain breaker. Also, overall, I would say that a very well-built Constellation Zero Venti plus this team should do pretty similarly to this with the crit food. But yeah, the goal is to, of course, just, have more stable testing results. So I would say that the teams are overperforming a bit. But with his signature weapon, we now have a 26.2% increase to the team DPS. Also, Durin is using his signature weapons, keep that in mind. And now we activated his Constellation 1, which we can see here shoots 2 additional little arrows. However, both N1 and N4 are 2-hit attacks. And we can see that only 1 extra set of arrows are actually being shot for N1 as well as N4. So yeah, just not like a complete, multiplicative thing for all the arrows, but just for most of his arrows. Anyway, we can see here that now with Constellation 1, Refinement 1 on Venti, as we take on our Gopher friend with the trusty ruler metric, now he's doing 14.2% more team DPS over his Constellation 0 Refinement 1. Anyway, we are now activating his Constellation 2, which does a lot of stuff. I believe it shreds additional resistance as well as basically gives him a souped up elemental skills. We can see his elemental skill icon is actually glowing now, which is really cool. And it's doing some pretty chunky numbers. Let's see if we can spot one right here. I think it did 376,000 damage. We can see that this actually shoots up his damage by another 27% on top of his Constellation 1. Definitely a massive constellation. Anyway, people that go for Constellations 3 and above, I mean, look, let's be real, they're going to go for Constellation 6. 3 and 5 don't really do much either, and 4 is not that huge of a deal either. So Constellation 6, it is where Venti basically gets like 100% crit damage. Absolutely wacky amount. So let's see how much damage is his elemental skill here going to do. It's going to do, let's see right here, crit, 660,000 damage. Elemental skill on Venti now, another plus 46% damage. Of course, that is with C3 through 5. Anyway, we're going to go for Constellation 6, Refinement 5 Venti, now refining his weapon up to 5. And let's go. I mean, I think with how little health the Gopher had, and I even messed up my rotation here, but you know what? Who cares? It doesn't matter. 786,000 elemental skill nuke. Yeah, the Gopher is not going to be surviving a full rotation, as we can see it getting taken out by C6R5 Venti. Now, this nuke setup is actually really hilarious because this boss, when you jump up in the air, gives you 600% attack. So we're going to battery everyone up, proc the Peak Patrol song on Albedo, and here we go, Durin. And now we're going to get the swirl off in order to shred its resistances. And bam, 1.69 million. Nice amount of damage on his elemental skill. I believe this is like probably the largest Anemo nuke now in the game. But yeah, absolutely hilarious nuke setup. I had to show you guys that. So yeah, what do I think about Venti now after his buffs? I mean, he is certainly actually a very solid Anemo main DPS character, although he definitely does have some minor issues. And let's actually just compare him a little bit with Xiao and Wander. For example, with Wander, if you compare Venti to Wander, who I think has a bit closer of a playstyle with the normal attack spams, I would say one advantage that Wander does actually have is that he does not need energy for a ramp-up time in order to begin his DPS cycles. So yeah, that is very helpful, obviously, in Stygian Onslaught. However, besides that, I would say that Venti definitely gives Wander a run for his money. And for the people that already had a Venti, this is a fantastic, I would say, like, kind of consolation prize, because yeah, Venti hasn't been in the best spot lately. However, with this, he's actually a very solid main DPS character. But with that being said, we can probably expect a future main Anemo DPS character to come out. So in that situation, as I demonstrated, you can clear Stygian Onslaught on Merciless with Venti, with Constellation 0, Refinement 0, Chainbreaker. If you slap on the Rust and crown his talents, I should be able to compensate for not having Farazan. So yeah, you really don't need his signature weapon for him to really perform reasonably well as a main DPS character. But hey, it's really hard to say exactly how the future will go, especially when it comes to what future impact may bring with different characters. So yeah, Either way though, Venti now a very solid character. As you can see, if you like Venti and just want him to do a lot more damage, if he's been one of your favorite characters, this is a fantastic time, and his signature weapon will definitely help him do that. But I don't really think his signature weapon is necessary, at the very least, for the next versions, or this version, depending on when you're watching this video, end game content. And as usual though, when it comes to character reruns and stuff like this, even a buff like this for Venti, you can expect them to be good for less patches than, for example, a brand new character. I would wager 1 to 2 patches, maybe 3 patches max, where we have a stuff that really benefits Venti in terms of, you know, his performance. Whereas, like, you know, newer characters tend to have a few more patches than that where they excel at. So yeah, overall Venti, great character now. He was already like okay, I guess, for grouping, but now he's actually just a very solid DPS character. Let me know what you think about Venti and what your plans are for Venti down below. And I apologize that this video was certainly, I would describe it as, you know, less editing and a bit less details than usual. But yeah, I mean, I'm just so cooked over this Thanksgiving holiday. But hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Went to Lose, signing out.